SNK had tried copying the Street Fighter II formula with mixed results. Then in 1993, they had the bright idea to add swords to the formula. Not a bad idea. Thus, Samurai Showdown was born. This is not the first time that a weapons-based one-on-one fighter was done. Barbarian is also not the first weapon-based fighter, but it is the first side-view one that even included fatalities, plenty of gore, and that cover. That's gotta be one of the best video game covers ever. But Samurai Showdown featured some interesting characters, solid controls, and great stages to really set it apart from Street Fighter II, and enough blood and gore to make Quentin Tarantino giddy. This game would go on to spawn 22 sequels, all of them one-on-one fighters, except for one title. Released in 1997 for the Neo Geo CD, the PlayStation, and the Saturn, it was the only game in the series to take place outside of the fighting genre, going for a JRPG angle. Can you imagine making a game so revolutionary that it is universally tied to one genre and then somehow making it into a different genre? Some series out there have done this successfully. Dragon Quest, for example, did this very well. Even Metal Gear went a bit off the radar with Metal Gear Acid on the PSP. Now, like I just mentioned, Samurai Spirits RPG did come out on the PlayStation and the Saturn, but at the beginning of its development, this game was going to be an exclusive to the Neo Geo CD, which would actually make sense if you wanted to attract gamers that were on the fence about getting a Neo Geo CD. Here's the problem though, the console will be discontinued that very same year that it came out, and I'm pretty sure SNK knew this and decided to release it on, another console that wouldn't be discontinued a few months after the game's release. All 3 ports of the game never got an official translation to English, therefore stayed as a Japanese exclusive. The initial plan for the game was for it to take place across 3 releases. All chapters would be released as their own standalone title. Then the plan changed to have the storyline spanned across 2 games, with part 1 having chapters 1 and 2, and the second game containing part 3. Eventually, chapter 3 would be completely dropped so that the game could be released sooner, and chapters 1 and 2 being the final storyline, all combined into one game. The entire development was supposedly a huge mess behind the scenes and at one point would have been completely scratched, and I'm not quite sure what saved it, but it's a good thing that it was. All 3 ports of the game are similar other than minor graphical differences here and there and some menu options being present on the PS1 and Saturn and not on the Neo Geo CD port. However, the Neo Geo CD port has extra animations for the characters that are missing on the other 2 ports. The great news about this title is that eventually in 2023, 26 years after its release, the game got a full English translation, courtesy of romhacking.net user Deuce. Nice work there. But you know what? Enough of all the details. How is the game? Is it a good RPG? Is it fun? Is it worthy of the Samurai Showdown name? Well, let's take a look. This game allows you to select from 6 characters, all from part 1 and 2. First up, Haomaru, the main character from the series. Not much to say about him. His story starts off with Amakusa trying to recruit him for some evil deed, and Haomaru turns him down. Genjuro, filled with envy, attacks and critically wounds Haomaru. He then recovers and goes on a journey to find himself. Genjuro, who made his first appearance in part 2 and is the nemesis of Haomaru, he is the only character out of the 6 that plays out his storyline all alone. Galford, the American ninja who is joined by Poppy, it's Galford, I can't say any more than that. Next up is Cham Cham, little sister of Tam Tam, who was in part 1, but he was absent in part 2 and 3 before returning to the lineup in part 4. She sets out to retrieve the stolen stones from her village. Lots of people were mad at Tam Tam's exclusion from part 2 and 3, and this game explains what happens to him and shows right at the intro of her story that he is turned into some small monkey that turns out to be Cham Cham's pet. This explains why one of his moves in part 2 is similar to Tam Tam's spin move from part 1. Nakoruru, the self-proclaimed protector of nature who sets out to fight evil and protect nature from Evil? She fights alongside her pet hawk, Mama Haha. Jeez, what a name. And last, Ukyo, the blind swordsman with a limitless amount of apples in his pocket, who seeks out to find the perfect flower for his love, and probably more apples. All 6 storylines start out at different locations, and in case you've ever wondered, the majority of the Samurai Showdown series takes place somewhere in the Edo period of Japan, which spanned from 1600 to 1868, this title included. Although it is not really pointed out which year it is exactly, but it does seem to take place sometime around 1788 to 1798. The same angle all characters share on this game are the antagonists, Amakusa and Mizuki. If those names sound familiar, it's because Amakusa was the main bad guy in part 1 and Mizuki in part 2. The overall quest is the same but seen from different points of view, which give the game good replayability value considering it's an RPG. You know, I wish more games in this genre would do things like this. This game allows you to choose from 2 battle style control schemes, menu-based and versus input. Menu-based just allows you to select your special moves in the menu screen and the character performs that move. Input select has you inputting the special moves just as if you were playing the regular fighting game. The pro side of this option is that it keeps you a bit more engaged in all battles. The con side to it is that if you fail to perform the input correctly, your character still attacks, but switches to a regular attack. That is especially bad if you are down to a few hit points and your next move will determine if you make it out of the battle alive. The overall menu screen has quite a few options too. You have your normal attack, your special move attack, which I just went over. You have an escape option. This one here is to intimidate. If you encounter enemies slightly weaker than you, choosing this option will sometimes cause 1 or more enemies to flee from battle. Next is the item option, but that's simple enough, so I'm not going to explain that one. You have the guard option, meaning you won't attack, but rather just take a defensive turn. And the auto option here just lets the CPU choose who to attack automatically. I found this option completely useless. And actually, last but not least is the change option, which lets you swap party formation. The battles are tricky because first, they are real time. There are no bars or any indicators to showcase this. When your turn comes up, if you stand there and do nothing, your enemy will attack ahead of you. So that level of interaction is always there. Getting the surprise on an enemy will allow you to perform 2 attacks. The POW meter here is slowly filled as you are attacked, and once it is on fire, you will deal critical damage on the enemy. There are no magic items or magic in general here for your party. You will only depend on the techniques that the characters will learn as they level up. For healing, you're going to be using items. Battles can be long and tedious at times, and it seems, at least to me, that there are way too many of them. The only good thing is that once a dungeon or level is cleared of the boss, you can explore that area with no enemy encounters. Great, because you can then go through the area in its entirety and search for treasure chests that you might have missed out on. There is also a lot more details that go into battles, such as blade tempering and weapon type versus that of enemy types and how they interact with each other, which I'm not going to get into here. But rest assured that if this is a game that you want to try out, you will have to take these things into consideration to have an easier time in battles. Staying with the battle system, the enemies in this game are very well detailed and have a good amount of animation to go with their attacks and spells. It's a nice change of pace to watch the enemy actually move around the screen as it attacks you or dodges your attacks. Some of these enemies are downright disturbing. Oh, what the fuck? The game surprisingly, very rarely zooms in and out when in battle, just like in the other games, which is what I felt would have been a nice addition here. I think it did it maybe 2 times while I played the game for this video, and what do you know, both times that it did it, I was not recording. The environments and backgrounds are also very rich in detail, with some having animation to go with them. I would have liked to see more parallax scrolling in the forest here, but overall, the graphics in this game are vibrant and take advantage of the Neo Geo specs wonderfully. I especially like how the towns look with all the little details that you would expect from a town versus the generic looking houses that you see in other video games. The soundtrack is what you would expect from a Samurai Showdown game. Some tunes, like that of Cham Cham, make a return here. But it's mostly those calm and soothing Japanese tunes playing in the background, followed by thunderous and sudden crescendos of drums and beats, letting you know that it's about to get serious. You will see many other characters making cameos here and there while you travel, some more than others. Jubei, for example, plays a big role in the first part of Haomaru's story. Many times characters will appear and aid you in battle, only to then disappear without any explanation whatsoever. Oh, cool! Finally, Hanzo is gonna join my party. Okay, never mind. The overall story and pacing is very linear, a little too linear for my taste. Go to point A, then B, and then figure out if you can't go to C unless you go back to A to get a key for point B and then get access to point C. These travels will also get sometimes interrupted by small NPC interactions that may play out into your storyline. One little thing I did find annoying with this game is that anytime you go to a town, the game asks you if you want to enter and then you have to choose yes or no, as opposed to just walking into it. Same thing for the border gates. Pretty sure this was done for loading purposes on the Neo Geo CD. I don't know if the PlayStation or the Saturn ones have that same problem. For this video capture, I am playing through Cham Cham and Haomaru's storylines, one on my PC and the other on my ROG Li. By the way, if you haven't seen my video on reviewing the ROG Li, go check it out. While I would recommend this game to any Samurai Showdown fan out there, I do so with some cautions. This game, like I said, is very linear with a somewhat shallow storyline regardless of who you get. Basically, everyone is after the same endgame, but from different perspectives. But you do get 6 characters, so if you want replayability with a thin storyline, I think this game will check off that box. The battle system is basic in its execution, but can be detailed and a bit confusing if you start to get into the weapon types you can bestow onto your sword and how they can be changed in battle with the proper items in hand and depending what enemy you fight. They can also be long sometimes, even when you end up recruiting 2 others to your party. In the beginning, you will be doing a lot of grinding to get your HP and special moves improved enough so that you can deal a good amount of damage to multiple enemies at once. Even after leveling up, I found the regular attacks to be somewhat weak. Of course, it would be nice to upgrade my sword, but this asshole here says I'm not worthy of his inventory.
It's been a pleasure frequenting your establishment.
Oh, before I forget, this game only has 2 save slots, which sucks since the game has 6 characters to choose from, which means you will have to play it 2 characters at a time, although I doubt this would be a big issue for many people out there. Thanks to the translation patch, this is now a game that can be enjoyed by anyone out there willing to put in a few seconds into hunting down the right ISO image that works with it. If you are a huge Samurai Showdown fan, then this RPG will hit the spot. If you are a retro JRPG fan, then this title might be interesting to you. It won't blow your mind or introduce any new mechanics that would have blown away gamers back then, but it is a solid trip down the Samurai Showdown series history and a glimpse into what sprite-based JRPGs were right before they transitioned for the most part to 3D behemoths like FF7, which I feel is one of the reasons why we never got this ported here or Europe. This game was released right before FF7 hit the market. Anyone and everyone back then was fixated on this game, FF7, before its release. Plus, Sony's requirements for 3D based games over sprite based ones around that time probably didn't fill SNK with much confidence in publishing this game over here in the West. And that's a shame. Now, anyone out there ever played this game, either initially on release or after the translation dropped? Any thoughts on it? Share with us all, and until next video, keep watching and keep gaming.